Film director Gillian Laub recently stopped by to talk about her new HBO documentary, Southern Rites. Take a look. The new HBO documentary, Southern Rites, premieres on Monday, May 18th, and the film takes us inside an American town where racial segregation is more than just a memory. Let's take a look.
In 2009, I was commissioned to go down to Georgia and photograph the segregated proms.
I was told that if my date was going to be black, he wouldn't be let in.
I was so mystified how this could still be happening in the 21st century. And little did I know, as the film would unravel, that there would be so much more than just a story about segregated proms, but really a story about race in general.
I always knew that I wanted to return to this town, so I thought that I was making a story about a town coming together to have their first integrated prom, and then a tragedy happened.
911.
I need this baby to come out here, because I think I hurt one of them.
My 22-year-old son was taken from me.
We've seen this on television a lot lately with young people whose lives did not need to be lost, people who were unarmed in situations where they were thought to be more dangerous than they really were. This film really explores the racial divide. We see it in the criminal justice system, the way people interact in their social lives, and then, of course, in voting as well.
Wow, joining us now to discuss that powerful HBO documentary, Southern Rites, is the film's director, Gillian Laub. Welcome to Rise 360.
So Gillian, my goodness, wow. When you encounter a town like this, do you automatically think, how could this be going on in the modern society? Isn't segregation an antiquated notion?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was definitely something that shocked me. It was something that I read about in history books. I didn't know was still going on in our own country.
It's true, because you think segregation, maybe apartheid in South Africa, but never on our shores.
Exactly. So that's why I felt like I needed to tell this story. But, you know, at the same time, this town felt like a very friendly, idyllic, southern, suburban town. So there was a dissonance in that.
Well, and you first started documenting this town about 6 years ago when you were, a photographer there reporting on a story about racial, or I guess segregated proms. Tell us about your first encounter with this town and why it struck you so deeply.
So I found out about this town because of a very brave student from Montgomery County High School. She wrote a letter to Spin Magazine. She was a subscriber, and it was really a call for help. Please, she pleaded, please come to our town. Please cover what is going on in my town. I can't take my boyfriend to the prom. He's black and I'm white. So I'm a freelance photographer, and I got a commission by Spin Magazine to then photograph. And the prom had passed, and the next segregated event was fall, and that was homecoming. So we went down the fall of 2002, and I photographed the segregated homecomings.
And what was that experience like for you, and what did you make of that?
I was haunted by it. I was truly haunted, and I was only there for 2 days, and the kids were cheering. There was like a real celebration going on in the town for homecoming.
Right.
And I saw the ballot, and it said, from the outside, it looked totally normal. And then I saw a ballot that had a column for a white queen and a black queen. And I just knew this, how can this be going on? So I was haunted, and I knew I needed to return.
And the races were okay with status quo? Did anybody there see a problem with it other than the person who reached out to Spin Magazine? Or did other people have a serious problem with it as well?
That's what was pretty baffling to me, because it felt like this was totally normal. And everyone accepted it as status quo. This is tradition. This is what we do. This is how it's always been.
Well, was anything else segregated besides the homecoming court? Were they allowed to go into the same actual dance?
So there wasn't, homecoming didn't have a dance. They just had queens that were crowned. So there was a white and black representative from each class, and both representatives paraded through the town on a float. And then there were kindergarteners that were also separated by race that were handing the crowns to the queens. So that's when you say, and it's shown in the film, they're teaching at such a young age. It's about education, that you're a color at such a young age.
So how do you decide to take it from a photo essay to a documentary? Walk us through that process.
Okay.
And what made you decide to take that leap? Because the two are very different.
Yes, very different.
As you know.
Yeah. So in 2009, I photographed the segregated homecomings that were then, the segregated proms that were published in the New York Times Magazine. In 2010, the school decided that they have to do something about this, and it's time to integrate these proms.
And that's because that piece caused such an uproar, and the media spotlight was on this town all of a sudden. I mean, I remember when that piece came out, and it was all anybody talked about for weeks.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of national outrage, and the town was very surprised that there was so much outrage because a lot of people really defended this tradition. So I knew that photographs, even though I truly believe in the power of a still image to tell a story, I felt like each medium has its beauty and also limitations. And I truly felt that the photographs alone couldn't tell this entire nuanced, complex story. Beautiful kids in prom dresses couldn't give the context. And I always interview people when I'm doing work, and their voices needed to be heard, their stories needed to be heard in that medium. So that's the story necessitated the film.
Well, I know John Legend is also, dedicating his voice to this project, and as an executive producer as well. How did he get involved in this? What was so important for him?
So we have a friend of a friend, and my friend showed him the project. We were mid-production, and she thought it would resonate with him, and it did, and we're so lucky it did. He's just a fantastic partner.
And
He's
while
amazing.
you were working on this documentary, a murder happened, and that helped shape the way the documentary would progress.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, and tell us how that crime impacted the direction of your documentary.
So basically, in 2010, when I started to make this film, I thought I was making a story about a town going through transition. So this was going to be the good story.
Right.
This was the town coming together. They were having their first integrated prom. And one of the students that I had met in years prior, her father was running to be the first African-American sheriff. And 8 years ago, he got death threats and he wasn't allowed to run. So I thought, wow, this is a moment of change in this town. He's running.
Real progress.
Real progress is happening, and I want to document this. And he had a lot of support from the town. And while I was covering that, this young girl texted me and let me know that her high school love, her first love, was shot and killed. An unarmed young black man was shot and killed by an older white town patriarch.
And what fueled that shooting? What was behind it?
So the man that killed Justin Patterson is Norman Neesmith. Norman Neesmith's daughter she and her friend invited Justin Patterson and his brother over late at night. They were teenagers, being teenagers, and Norman Neesmith heard something in the middle of the night. He got up, he took his gun from his bedside table, he confronted the boys. There was an altercation. He threatened them, and they ran for their lives. And that's when Justin got shot and was killed.
And how did that change the direction of the documentary?
I knew that this story was so important, especially because it wasn't being covered in the news. Nobody was reporting on this. I knew the family, I knew the Patterson family from the proms. And it was a year already I'm with them, and nobody is covering it. And it was pretty devastating.
Why do you think the media ignored that story, but were so quick to embrace the story of the segregated prom/segregated homecoming?
I think that the media has ignored a lot of stories. And Justin is just one of many, unfortunately. This has been going on for a long time.
And now you're going to be bringing all these stories to light on HBO. What do you hope viewers take away from this documentary?
I hope viewers see that there is so much progress that has been made, but we really do have a long way to go. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for fighting the good fight and doing the work that needs to be done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
The HBO documentary Southern Rites will be airing on HBO May 18th. Make sure you check it out, and thank you so much again for joining us. We'll be right back.